Welcome back to Financial Independence 101. This is Mike. Today I want to talk to you about EV cars, electric vehicles, and how they really are not the solution to our environmental problems, but they are a fun side project as an alternative or an option. And I'm a fan of what GM was doing in the 90s. I would have loved to have had an electric vehicle in the 90s. I would have been all about that, especially for just driving around town. But we're going to get talking about this. There are issues with electric vehicles that maybe technology will figure a way to correct in the future, but can we sustain this? Is this sustainable? Is this economically sustainable? Is it better than having the current technology of cars for combustion vehicles? And is it best for the citizens? I mean, you're going to hear about the environment. We're going to discuss all of this, all the different aspects, why EVs really are not the solution yet. Coming up. Fascinated with the idea in the 90s that GM was working on an electric vehicle, the EV1. I did a lot of research into it back in the day, but they scrapped it. It was actually more of a lease kind of option versus letting you buy it, and they took them all back and scrapped them. For whatever reason, there's a lot of people with their own theories on why they scrapped it back in the 90s, but I feel like it wasn't financially viable just yet. And the technology still wasn't there. And nowadays the technology is there, but can still be improved on. Now the net benefit of electric vehicles theoretically is that we are going to help the environment. We are going to lower this global warming issue. We're going to reduce the issue of global warming. And EVs really aren't going to do that. Now the mining of lithium itself can pollute the air and water with chemicals and heavy metals, but also it takes a tremendous amount of energy to extract it for the mining process of lithium, and those batteries don't last a whole long time, and you're going to have to be replacing your batteries in your cars frequently. They say about 8 years on these batteries, up to 12 if you're lucky. So this is the first unintended consequence of this, and it's just part of life. It is a reality. It's something I didn't even think about until, of course, looking into this situation. It is an issue. Next up is the cost of the battery, and the battery can cost to replace it $6,500 to $20,000 depending. And I know there was an invoice circulating around for about $30,000 for replacing a battery. The thing is, they were saying that was from a discontinued model, so they had to get it on the secondary market, so they weren't still making those batteries. And that's the reality you live in. There's going to be a point that if you like your EV and you want to drive it 30 years, like a lot of people have vehicles they've had for a long time, you just won't be able to at some point. They won't manufacture a battery for your early model, but that's an issue that we will have to deal with in the future, right? That's a future problem. Still, this is not cheap, and your car will not go unless you spend that $65 and $6,500 to $20,000 to replace it. Now they say typically it's within your manufacturer's warranty, but there's still more to it than that. There are some challenges when the weather gets cold because you're driving an electric vehicle. And with that, this past winter, it wasn't even a harsh winter, by the way. It was pretty mild for at least my area. And I was hearing a lot of people talking about how their EVs wouldn't even start. They were having trouble starting. On average, what they say about electric vehicles is that during the extreme cold, it's about 30% loss in battery range and tripling the charge time on the batteries when it's cold. And of course, sometimes it won't start. Now, I don't own one, and I don't really know how much different it is driving during the cold. Driving a combustion vehicle during the cold, you need to let it warm up. Once it's warmed up, it operates really well, and so it does have an advantage in the cold. Depending on where you live, that might be a bigger problem up north than it is down south. Now, there's a debate on whether the grid can handle electric vehicles. Obviously, they want to replace electric vehicles, combustion vehicles with electric vehicles across the board, and there is debate on this because we're already expecting in 2024 more rolling blackouts to happen according to the North American Electric Reliability Corporation. And the thing is that they cite weather, extreme weather being one of the main factors, but can the grid handle it? It's a tough one to say because we've had issues in the past, and as you continue to increase demand on the grid, through these electric vehicles, more charging stations, then it just stands to reason that some places are going to have some issues with their electricity needs being met. That's just an issue. That's a serious issue going forward. But one of the bigger ones is when you start having truckers, the large trucks, and those charging stations, they draw quite a bit of energy. And so there's a lot to factor into this. Seems like the only solutions that are even being thrown around are the renewable sources of energy. Now, I gotta say, renewable sources of energy are still unreliable. Solar, it only works during the day. You're only getting that charge during the day. And it has its own unintended consequences, as it does create more heat into the atmosphere for all of these solar farms that they have out there. And it's as much as 20 degrees higher in the area of miles and a few miles of the area of these solar farms. And that's an issue. I mean, it's just pushing it into the atmosphere. That is an issue. Although they're located in the desert. The other problem with this is that it's all here and now. Like everything when it comes to electricity is here now. Storing enough electricity to help with managing, say, the needs of a city, or even for you to charge your car. And a lot of people want to charge their cars at night. Well, the solar's not going to help you at night because it's not creating anything. So what's going to help you at night? Maybe wind. So there's unintended consequences to these technologies. Should we use these? Yes, we should have these alternatives. But now what happens to all of these windmills after around 20 years is the lifespan of the windmill, 20 to 25 years. And they can't reuse the turbines. And so with that, they're piling up in West Texas and they have to dispose of them. They're burying these. This is an issue. I mean, this is another issue. Should we not use solar or should we not use wind? I mean, wind and solar are renewables, but then again, they don't do anything when there's no wind. So there's no windmill turning when there's no wind. And now you have to look at the end of life, which is kind of what's going on here. End of life, end of use on these items. They gotta bury them. And so they're burying all of those so you can drive your electric cars and stuff. And I'm not against electric. I think they're really cool, actually. It's really, really cool. I just don't feel like spending $60,000 on an electric car when I already have a car that runs and drives, but it needs oil. Now, you need gas. Shut down the Keystone XL pipeline was one of the first things they did when they got into office in 2021. And I didn't like the idea of that, but all the economists said that they were going to drive up gas prices. And they did. They had hit about $4 a gallon around here, which are like $7 in California or something along those lines. And had we actually gone through this project, we would see the benefit of lower gas prices right now in America. And we'd probably still have the reserve full. So we have the strategic military reserve would still be full. Well, it's just called the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, but yeah, we know what we keep it for. So what is the net impact of shutting down the pipeline, tripling oil prices, canceling all of those permits, and a few other things they did to specifically spike the price of oil? And also, your electricity costs have gone up since then. And now they want to shut down a third of our plants. Well, what they want to do is they want to institute about a third of our plants are fossil fuel plants. And they want those plants to reduce emissions by 90% by 2030. They've already altered it in the last couple of years to 2035. But they threatened to shut them down. But all this has gone on. All of this inflation in energy. The energy prices shooting through the roof. And we have not made a positive improvement. Instead, it's gotten worse since 2021, perpetually. So our hottest year on record, this global warming is getting worse after we've already financially decimated American citizens. Now we're still seeing no impact. In fact, it's getting worse. Well, we could go to Amish. We could all switch to Amish, not use any energy, and just live on our own. It'd still get worse over the next 100 years. And where is the proof? Because I'm trying to find it. Proof that it would get way better if we all switched to Amish tomorrow. You know, think about this also. Now they're saying that humans are polluting the earth. So we're polluting ourselves just by living. Now, I do believe pollution is an issue, and I do want to breathe clean air. I'm not against having clean air. The problem is that EVs aren't a solution. Now, I think electric vehicles are fun, they're cool, they're exciting, they're futuristic. It's something that's awesome to have out there, but it's out of the reach of most American citizens. Most American citizens can't afford a $60,000 electric vehicle. They can't afford to buy a new battery for $6,500 to $20,000. And yes, maybe in your state or your city, you're actually charging it cheaper than you'd gas it up. But there's a lot more unintended consequences out there. EVs are not the solution. I'm not against EVs at all. I think they're really cool. But I'm not driving one because I just don't want to put all that money into an extremely depreciating asset such as an electric vehicle. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Financial Independence out.